Change comes quickly. The company that rents me my office here gave me their usual annual, don't do anything and we'll renew you for another year. But I did something. I said I wasn't interested. What that means is that within a few months, I'll have to move completely out of the office that I'm currently using for live streaming, scanning, and all of my Internet Archive work. The reason is very simple, but the ramifications are actually rather interesting. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It, a podcast about technology, history, and getting myself out of debt. Thanks to Daniel Boyd, Jeff Atwood, and the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. The reason for not renewing is pretty straightforward. My rent has gone up from year to year, and it's now crossed the event horizon from being understandable to being not worth what I'm getting. Right now I'm paying something like $950, and I want to be very clear, I'm not paying the full $950. Kay Savetz and FaxZero.com have been subsidizing my office for the past year and a half, simply to turn it from something that's a huge lien on my income to something I just pay a little bit of money for. But that term is coming to an understandable end, and the amount that I'm charged for this office just doesn't make sense. It's pretty small, 6 foot by 9 foot. It has a whole bunch of equipment in it. It's extremely hot because of all of the digitization and VHS decks and old school tech running at any given time. And while I would love to be able to continue my work, I'm just not going to do it here. But instead of getting sad or looking at things as a failure or a problem or some sort of tragic end, I just feel like I have had an incredible run in this place. Every day that I come, I open up the door, and it's like a whole other world. I've got multicolored LEDs sending splashes of color. The arrangement of equipment and materials surrounds me in a way I find comforting and intriguing. There's always something to do in here. Stacks of magazines to digitize or piles of tapes to run through. It's such an open-ended set of projects that I'm doing that it enables me to do what I need to do on any given day, depending on where my mood takes me. Not many people have that kind of privilege. And while I've been here, I've been digitizing hundreds of audio cassettes, thousands of video cassettes, and doing hundreds of hours of live streaming on Twitch. Instead of focusing on how things end, and to be sure, I've made it quite a central pillar of how people know me, that I'm there for the end, the day-to-day success of having a space to work in cannot be diminished just by it having an ending term. This area is not my first workspace. It's not my first office. It's where I'm working right now. I appreciate the time that I'm spending here instead of focusing on it ending. One of the greatest parts of moving in here was looking at this empty blank room as a palette, as a waiting space to be configured however I wanted. And I made it up as I went along and added shelving units and then a podcasting booth, having a desk with another table sitting on it, being able to add different monitors and machines, and then creating what I would call a nightmare of spaghetti cabling all throughout the back part of the room. Truly terrifying wiring going on back there. But somehow it would all work. It would go from VHS deck to time-based corrector and then off to a digitization card. It would go from one of the machines to a large television in the back that represented a background for my live streaming. And of course, all sorts of lighting. Direct lighting, indirect lighting to provide a great video image. It's something that I'm proud of, even if it's not around for very much longer. Years ago, I made the decision, probably one of the better decisions I've ever made, to keep my work area and living space separate. I know people who do a very good job of combining those two. I wasn't one of those people. For me, I would start slipping into this multi-hour reverie of home living, work living, home living, work living. Not to say I don't take work phone calls or do things when I'm home, but having that mental separation, getting into a vehicle or taking a walk and going over into a separate designated space designed for work really helped me. A rule which I think might transfer to other people considering a situation like this was my approach to this office was only to do work that could only be done in the office. Do video digitization, do scanning of papers, transfer of materials, packaging and repackaging things to be shipped. While at home, I could do some virtual work, check on spam, modify collections at the archive, and of course, eternally do email. But having that barrier, small as it was, really made a difference in taking care of my time. When I realized that I was sitting in a small box, but wasn't doing anything important to that box, it quickly ejected me, forced me to go home, to go out. It's a little bit of a cliche to say that it's good to go outside once in a while, and for many years, it didn't matter to me. But as I get older, this different area for different work gives me, I like to think, a richer day at the end. There's going to be a lot of work in finishing up what's in this office and preparing it for either storage or to find a different, cheaper space that I can set up in. I started looking at potential real estate, and there were some real great options. It's going to cost some money to do different kinds of setups and paying different fees and deposits. Maybe we'll be talking about this office like it's a weak 1.0 for the 2.0 that everyone got to see later. Or maybe I just won't have an office for a while. It's okay. I don't have to scan all the time, every day. Before I go, though, I'll be taking a lot of photographs, a lot of mementos, perhaps some writing about what it's like to be in here. Because it was special. It was a special way to spend a few years. It was a way of legitimizing, in my mind, the work I do. I appreciate when people communicate with me that I'm doing good work, but something different came over me every time I went down a random, anonymous hallway of doors, went to my special door, opened it up, and this humming, weird world was waiting for me. A closet of wonders, a box of dreams. And whether I'm going to wake up for good or go into a deeper sleep, well, I'm going to find out. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It, thanks to James Bequayanu, Ernie Hershey, Michael Rubin, Dilip Reddy, Sean Kelly, Trixie the Cat, Martin, Symbionts, Benjamin Guts, and Anonymous, along with the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. The biggest problem with office space is the lease. You sign up usually by the year. You commit to a full year of having an office, and a lot can change in a year. Because this office is part of a rental company, they're pretty straightforward about how all the money works. The requirement they've had that I decide, up or down, whether or not I'm going to go for another year 3 months before renewal, is certainly their right. But I'll be frank and tell you it's indicative of a lot of their style. Not exactly a hug and a handshake with this particular group. But to their credit, I never had security problems. I found the staff friendly, the ice machine always loaded, and being able to walk in and feel like I was part of something else really helped me get into the right mental state. Whether my next renting adventure makes me feel like I was taken advantage of, or these were the good times, that's the adventure of the future unknown.